Hi, I'm Mike, owner of the In-Groove in Phoenix, Arizona. Today I'm starting a new series of videos. These are going to kind of be more like updates throughout the week, smaller videos. What ends up happening is, I do shootout videos, I'm doing weekly new arrival videos, and then I do the monthly Q&A, and then every now and then I'll pop something else in there. But this is kind of going to give me a chance to kind of talk about what's been going on that week, maybe once a week, twice a week, just news permitting. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the Mobile Fidelity Jeff Beck Truth album. That has been, that has been an album I've been probably called on at the shop maybe 100 times, phone calls, emails. It's been crazy. Essentially what happened was Mobile Fidelity dropped it on their website, dropped it on their sister company, Music Direct, and then the thing sold out instantaneously, like within minutes from what I heard. I had customers coming in and saying, man, this is like turning into Music Matters. If you're not on within the first couple of minutes, it's gone. But they did 4,000 copies from what the blurb said. Although what's a little bit weird about this particular one, so online in the press release, it originally said 4,000 copies. But if you can see, which you probably can't, right there on the little box where they number them, it says limited edition of 5,000. So I'm not really sure exactly what the actual number is. As quick as they sold out, you would think it would have been 4,000. But so where it stands right now is 4,000. Maybe this is a typo. It's 5,000. I'm not 100% sure, but 5,000 copies of an audiophile record in 2021 is an extremely small amount, considering, you got One Step selling out months before they come out that are 10,000 copies, and that's a much more expensive album. But yeah, so we're getting a small amount of these things, but we're getting such a small amount. I was told up front months ago when this was even announced as, a future record, I was told that, this was going to be really heavily allocated and I was going to get a small amount. That's why I never even did a pre-order on that. It just didn't make any sense to do a pre-order on this particular title, knowing ahead of time that I had such a small amount coming. Because if it's, say if the allotment is such a small amount that it literally I have to sit there once it goes live and take it off immediately just to make sure it doesn't get oversold. That's the point where I don't even bother. What I'm probably going to do with this particular title, and I talked about it on last week's new arrival video, is I'm thinking I'm just going to put an Instagram post, put it up for sale for the locals. Whatever's left over will go on the website. So if you see the Instagram post, say it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever I have available left, maybe, 10 minutes after I close, which is 7 o'clock Arizona time, so maybe 7:10 Arizona time, I'll throw on the website. I might not even have any that go on the website. I gotta think first and foremost, I am an independent local record store. I want to take care of the locals, the people that I see week after week after week. So, I'm not saying a lot of you guys online I don't see week after week after week, but I want to take care of the people in the local community. Whatever I have, if I have anything left, will go online afterwards. But let's talk about the sound quality. This record absolutely rocks. It's unbelievably good. It's so good. I'm not even joking, I've probably listened to Ain't Superstitious like 20 times, and I've only had this record a couple of days. It is unbelievably good. It kind of has, if you guys are familiar with the Robert Ludwig Led Zeppelin 2, kind of where or the Jimi Hendrix Access Bowl to Love, to where it kind of has that swirling effect that takes place. It kind of creates almost a surround sound environment. It kind of does that with Jeff Beck's guitar, to where, he'll start in on a lick and then it kind of swirls around you. It is an absolutely killer sounding record. And this was a record that I've never really found a copy that spoke to me like this does. The original's just nothing like this. This is just unbelievably good. So, this has been This has been a hell of a listen. I'm super glad that I actually got a copy of this. Some of the mobile fidelity releases that they do, maybe they sound great, but like, the last mobile fidelity one step of Paul Simon record sounds fantastic. Don't get me wrong, it sounds great, but it's like, I like a couple of songs on that album. I just don't know how many times, I'll listen to 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, but how many times am I going to listen to Still Crazy after all these years? It's a good album. To me, though, it's just not a great album. It's one of those albums to me that has a couple of good tracks on it and then like a lot of throwaway tracks. Unlike Graceland, which is just, that's dynamite front to back musically. Sonically, it's good as well. But this is a title that is killer from front to back, except, of course, Greensleeves. I don't know why Jeff Beck ever put Greensleeves on this. But yeah, there's 1 minute and 47 seconds of Greensleeves on the beginning of side 3. But I've always thought that was a weird out-of-place record. But that's kind of, I guess maybe that was what the blues guys were doing back then is, a lot of the stuff was paying homage to older music, whether it be mostly older blues guys from the 20s and 30s. But for whatever reason, he decided to throw Greensleeves in there. But yeah, the whole album is fantastic. Killer record, and I mean, it just finishes off with Ain't Superstitious. I know these things are going for like absolutely stupid money at this point, but you can't blame mobile fidelity, because the truth being, when this thing was probably negotiated, say they negotiated 4,000 copies, this was probably 2019 when this deal was being put together. In 2019, you can get 4,000 or 5,000 of a record and it would last years. That Aretha Franklin, that sat on the shelves for a couple of years. I think that was limited to 4,000 as well. That sat on the shelf for years. So I can't blame them. Now, I do know that this is the last of the limited edition non-one-step titles. So this is going to be it. We had the Iron Butterfly, we've had this Jeff Beck, we've had the Grateful Dead. We've kind of run into a series of numbered titles by them that are non-one-steps. But this is the end. Now we're going to have standard releases that are going to be more timed releases. So if it's limited, it's going to be limited by how many they can sell in, say, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever the contract calls for. And then the one-steps are going to be limited to a certain number. But yeah, guys, I mean, if you got a chance to get this, I'm guessing small independent stores are going to get this in. So there's going to be a lot of these floating through the system for a little while. I wouldn't be going on eBay right now and buying one of these things. I saw originally they were selling for $400. You need to wait till all the inventory is shipped. Everybody has it. All the flippers load up online. eBay loads up with them. Discogs loads up with them. And that inevitably drives the price down. Are you going to get this on the secondary market for $50? No, that's not going to happen. But you're not going to have to pay $400 either, I wouldn't imagine. This is probably going to be a record that comfortably falls in that $100 to $200 range, on the secondary market. But a killer track, at $49.99, if somebody played me Ain't Superstitious and said, hey, Mike, I got a single for you here, it's $49.99, you want this 12-inch single, I'd be like, after I listened to that, it'd have been, yep, I'll take it, because it's killer. All right, so I bought this months ago, and this is kind of, essentially we're doing a what is Mike listening to this week. I bought this months ago. This is a Paul McCartney Band on the Run Nimbus Supercut. Nimbus titles were Hi-Fi Magazine only titles. They had this sticker on there. You can see it right there that said Supercut. Most of these they did 1,000, 1,500 max. I bought this like 6 or 7 months ago on eBay. I got it sealed. I cracked it open. It was absolutely perfect. Unlike a lot of sealed records you get, they come out of the package plagued with problems. But this was perfect right out of the package. Actually, I don't even know if I've ultrasonically cleaned it yet. I played it a few times at the house. Sounds fantastic. Most of the Nimbus titles are, they're up there. They're up there with the best sounding titles that have ever been done. In a lot of cases, I've talked about the Supertramp, Breakfast in America. That was a shootout winner for that video. But this is a killer title. And the reason I think it's so good is, it's so hard finding clean, quiet Paul McCartney records. The Capitol records, just like the Beatles stuff, a lot of those American Capitol presses were just like plagued with noise. Surface, noise was an issue. and it's been very, very difficult for me to find clean UK copies that play quiet. So this is kind of one of the few audiophile Paul McCartney records that have been done. And now something non-vinyl that I've been listening to. A lot of you guys have seen my videos to where I talk about reel-to-reel. So this is the newest reel-to-reel from Analog Productions. You know, and for you that, you know, for those that aren't familiar with the reel-to-reel stuff that's going around, essentially there's kind of a, I wouldn't say a new craze, but newer, to where manufacturers are, you know, like Analog Productions, there's a Tape Project, there's other companies that are doing these. They're essentially getting the original master tape, and in real time, they're copying the master tape, which is essentially, in most cases, two reels look like this. Side A, and then you'll get another reel for side B. They essentially copy it to a safety master. Okay, so you got the master tape, which is first generation, the safety copy, which is going to be second generation, and then they're essentially making yours, which would be this, directly off that safety copy. In some cases, they're going back to the original 3-track tape, like some of the Living Stereos that Analog Productions did. They're going back to the 3-track tape, so the safety ends up being the 2-track master tape, and then your copy ends up being the second generation. So you're getting second or third generation tapes, and the sound on them is absolutely killer. I was really looking forward to this because I've talked to you guys many times about my demo, my test records, the records that I use to demo gear and test out new equipment. And the Kevin Gray cut copy of this title is one of my demo records. It's one of my go-to. So it's a record that I'm extremely familiar with, and I've heard it many, many times. This particular title, I don't know how I feel about it yet. It sounds absolutely fantastic, but it's wildly different than the Kevin Gray cut. The Kevin Gray cut is cut, you know, the 33 RPM is cut extremely hot. I mean, it's cut so hot, that's a record that's plagued with customer complaints from people that have lower end systems, because that's a record that I constantly have to get, you know, deal with emails on that, hey, this record skips. It's cut so hot, there's so much energy in the groove that it's popping. You know, a lot of times your starter systems, record player wise, it pops right out of the groove. So this is a wildly different presentation. This is much more laid back. It has a much more, you know, laid back, a much more organic flow to it. But at the same time, it also doesn't have the sibilance issues that, you know, those harp S's. There's a couple of tracks on the Kevin Gray cut of this, although it's unbelievably, it's a killer record. Don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite records. It's very hard to tame some of those S's on the original, you know, 33 cut. That kind of is really softened by the reel-to-reel. And also, it's a much more even presentation because, you know, I think with the 33 cut, you get in towards the deeper into the record, into those inner grooves, and it becomes, you know, there's a little bit more noticeable of a sound drop-off, which, of course, you don't experience with tape. But I'm going to have to do some more listening to this. It's so time-intensive listening to reel-to-reel that I haven't really had much time to do it lately because, I mean, you know, it's a process. Fire up the tape machine, bust out the, you know, tape, spool it up. It's not as easy as throwing on a record. I'm not going to say it's egregiously hard, but demagging the heads and cleaning the heads and, you know, it's a process. So it takes more time. But this is probably the first reel-to-reel that I played in months, but when I saw this title, I was like, you know, it inspired me to get the reel-to-reel going again. I'm super looking forward to a time that hopefully we can get rock titles. You know, if you're a reel-to-reel guy, you kind of are with me on this. There's a lot of classical, there's a lot of private classical and jazz recordings, you know, the non-big name commercial stuff, boutique label stuff. There's, you know, but there's virtually no, well, there is no mainstream rock reel-to-reel. You know, Del Mark is putting out some blues, Hoodoo Man Blues, Junior Wells, that's a reel-to-reel title. I mean, there's some bluesy towards rock, you know, I would say that and maybe the John Lee Hooker and Heat is probably the closest to rock. Nope, just dawned on me. There is one True Rock title, and they did Creedence Clearwater Willie and the Poor Boys. I want to say that's the, off the top of my head, that's the only reel-to-reel that is currently, if you can even get it. You know, Tape Project's out of stuff all the time. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm listening to. I'm going to try to do these videos a lot more frequently. Like I said, there's things I want to address throughout the week, and what ends up happening is they just get in for, you know, 3-4 weeks go by and the things get forgotten when I get into the live stream. So yeah, this is going to kind of be what I'm listening to, kind of what's going on in the industry, news, kind of a, you know, a little hodgepodge of everything. This is going to be the Mike Rants video. You name it, I'm going to address it in these more frequent videos. All right, guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Check us out online at www.theingroove.com. Until next time.